Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 291. My name is Brando. Another episode you can watch on Zoom if you would like. So you get to see some more bearded faces. Today I'm rejoined by Matt Gordon, who is my co-host, guest co-host for Me First and the Gimme Gimmes with Spike. What's going on, Matt?
Nothing much, just hanging out. Just been doing some spring cleaning around the house past couple of days, so it's good to get out and talk. Ever since Guns N' Roses, at least. So it's good to get out and talk some GN'R because I really haven't got a chance to since the night of the show. So
yeah. As we do our Portland review this episode, and I don't know if you noticed, some people might think this is a Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, I knew what it was.
What is it then?
It's the Seahawks, right? Not Seahawks, Winterhawks.
No, Winterhawks.
Yeah, I know. My brain went sideways. That's the Winterhawks hat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Portland Winterhawks. Mike knew as well. My brother Tristan got me because he's visited Portland a few times and got me this hat. Very slight difference. I think they came out the same time, the Winterhawks and the Blackhawks, and the owners were friends. It's like a minor league hockey team, but still just a subtle.
Yeah. The story goes that the Winterhawks didn't have their own gear when they started, so they borrowed gear from the Chicago Blackhawks that they weren't using anymore, and then just kind of. Yeah, and then just kind of went on that way for years. And I was a little kid, and I would see the Blackhawks players. I would think they were Winterhawks players.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that either. And look at this. I love the amount of hockey I inject in this GN'R team's podcast.
No, I'm not a biggest hockey guy, but I grew up watching the Winterhawks. And one of my best friends, Nick, if you're watching, he's massive hockey guy. His Instagram handle is I suck at hockey. So.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, man.
And it was a few episodes ago. I spoke to Derek Armstrong, who's in the LA Kings front office, about hockey. He used to play for the Islanders and the Rangers, and just it's cool as we spread the 6 degrees of GN'R bacon. But today, obviously, a lot of GN'R talk. So Michael Clancy, it's a pleasure because you got like 20,000 followers on Twitter. Do you have like a jazz infusion album I don't know about? Like, how do you have 20,000 followers other than being so positive and loving rock and roll? And thank you for your support, retweeting me a bunch of times.
Yeah. I've been a user since 2012. Not a drug user again in 2012, but I bet that's an old story. But it's just been it's kind of an eclectic a group of followers, and I just followed certain hashtags, and it's just been since 2012 a following that's happened, and it's just I'll put out in and I think you get a sense that I just have there's I don't know, it's just it's a lot of the positivity, and then I got hooked up with a lot of music people in the metal community, a lot of people that are accepting of my views on positive living and that kind of thing, and like sobriety is a part of my deal, right? And I recovery, and so I've got a lot of people in recovery that follow. It's just a lot of different sections, a lot of rock and roll, a lot of music people, and it just over a period of time just following people since 2012. So,
I love it.
But no, I'm not. I'm just a regular guy, and I don't know how the heck that happened. But I posting pictures of shows and just all over the place. I'll get people following me, some blue check person, and I don't know what they think of me. And then I'll get, and then I just follow back people with 12 followers, and and Twitter's where I like to hang because I can kind of I can self-censor. Like I can, if you know what I mean. I don't have to get.
You're a rare one on Twitter that can self-censor. Then
I do that. I kind of stick to what I want to stick to, and then I can just tune out everything else on the other platforms. Just stuff comes at you, just nonstop, like in your feed. And I don't want to talk to family and get into family drama and all that kind of stuff. So
gotcha.
I like.
No, understandable.
So you guys, this is why I think it's great. You are two perfect people. Why I love doing this. which I guess I wish I had done it since the beginning. These fan review episodes. Of course, we used to have. We see if you guys can hear the soundbite. It's a fan obsession. Did we be able to tell that as I'm trying to bring back the sound bites here?
Oh,
Okay. I used to have like fan segments on the show where I would just maybe do a short interview and then interview, just a regular Guns N' Roses fan about their fandom. But
wow.
doing these review shows has just been not just fun for all of us who goes to a Guns N' Roses show and need to get all the energy out post show, still even days after.
Oh yeah.
They're really well received by the listener, because I think it's
Wow.
you help paint the picture for those who aren't able to go to those shows, and we're all kind of along for the ride, so that's fun.
Yeah. And I've been the person my first Guns N' Roses concert wasn't until 2016 on Not in This Lifetime. So I was one of those people that couldn't go to a show for years, who followed stuff like this to know about the shows. So
that's why
it's perfect for me.
The good part of social media and the good part of what Mike does, connecting people. So that's why it's all that we can all kind of meet here. And before we move on to the Portland thing, a couple things I do want to mention. There still might be a Denver review that we do. Stuart, who reached out to me on Instagram, also the same Stuart that when I visited Denver a few weeks ago on my vacation, he wanted me to meet him in an arcade that had the GN'R pinball, the new one. But just like with this episode, just the timing isn't right yet. So Denver episode may come in the future. I appreciate, Stuart regardless. And this is a little bit more serious, but I just want to make sure he's an avid listener. So I want to make sure I acknowledge him. Anthony Scarpaci, he wanted to do the Vegas review show, which the show has yet to happen. He messages me just a few days ago, Brando, I'm not going to be at the Vegas show. I'm in the hospital. I had an effing heart attack this morning. I really wanted to co-host, but I'll be listening even more intensely now since I'm missing it. So he is listening. Keep up the good work and stop worrying about being banned. Fuck it. You don't need them to do the good radio. You got this. More importantly, Anthony, you got this. So I'm glad you're keeping a good attitude. And whenever you get better, you'll come on and we'll talk GN'R, whether or not you went to a show or not, just to have you back on. So best.
I think I speak for all the fans of the show when we say we're all keeping you in our thoughts too.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
It's a tough thing to be, but you can get past it, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt and Mike.
No
and
problem.
I guess to keep the the mood a little solemn, little sad, because as we do this in real time, even though it's a podcast, recently we lost Charlie Watts, the legendary drummer from the Rolling Stones, and as of last night, as we were recording this, GN'R played L.A. They dedicated "Knocking on Heaven's Door" to him, and I know, like what do you say? Like the Stones are just like they're an iconic band, and they're going to continue touring, obviously without Charlie, but this might be it, and this is just a band that's toured since I've been alive. And I know, Michael, since you're a little bit of an older guy, a little bit more seasoned, you know what? Let's say that you have some more gray in your beard than I do. You're a more seasoned veteran than me. Can you talk? Have you seen the Stones? I never had the chance.
56 times.
Whoa!
It's the one band that I have an accurate account, and I have programs and a lot of memorabilia. A lot of people know that, and I'm good friends with Chips Enough and Ace Von Johnson. There's some different, players that, I've connected with locally, but all of them know, many people know my love, my passion, number one, world's greatest rock and roll band. 1981 was the first time I saw them at the Coliseum in LA, and haven't missed a tour. A lot of those high numbers, when you hear 56 shows, happen when I had money established later in life and could go to 7 shows on a tour and go to Japan. I saw them in Japan. I saw them. I'd take flights spur of the moment to Chicago, and at different juncture. I've seen them all over this country, and out of country into Canada. LA with Guns N' Roses. And, I've just been, the Stones are my first love. And I find it interesting, if I can just say this, I cried about Charlie Watt. I mean, it was just a rough day to hear that. And it just brought, this sense of mortality to me. And I can't believe it just seemed like yesterday when they were in their 30s and I was seeing them, and I thought they were old then. And, and the big thing is, with a lot of the tweets that you made, you couldn't have been more right to say, I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't be a Guns N' Roses without the Stones, but there wouldn't be the fan of Guns N' Roses of my type, of whatever type of fan you want to call me of Guns N' Roses. I love the band, and I love them primarily because of the Rolling Stones. It's like I thought there would be it was like this is them. I didn't connect all these the influences of, Aerosmith or whatever anybody else would. I saw this is like Stones on steroids. Greg Renoff wrote that book about Van Halen saving heavy metal in the late 70s. And I'd seen all those shows on the Sunset Strip starting in the 80s, a lot of shows. And nobody captured that for me like Guns N' Roses. So I became a big Guns N' Roses fan because of the Stones, right? So
that does make sense. And that's something we do on this podcast, is to find where in the timeline did you become a Guns N' Roses fan? Whether, you're introduced to them, before their GN'R or a Rolling Stone kind of band, they introduce you to GN'R. Maybe they soften. If you're not into hard rock like that, they might soften the blow. And of course, we'll talk to fans that found them through Chinese Democracy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things. And also, because I think I just saw it slip. So I want to acknowledge it before it falls. I want to give a shout out and thank you, because I got it in the mail. One of the fan reviews that we did was in Fargo with Eric P. And he, he said on the podcast, he bought me an extra lithograph. I mean, look,
I love that.
He's not lying, and he wouldn't accept any money. I was like, I'll give you $50. You don't need to mark it up. I'll just let me just pay. And he's nope. So thank you. I'll get it framed at some point, but right now it's just leaning up against my wall. So thank you. I want to make sure, especially before it falls and it gets everything at my stage collapses.
Oh yeah. Well, it still looks good, even if it slipped.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. No.
Did you have any lithographs, by the way, before we move on? Because either of you bought lithographs at shows? Are you guys?
I've never got the lithographs. I've gotten a T-shirt at every show I saw except Tennessee. I forgot Tennessee, but I've got tons of memorabilia, just not lithos.
Okay.
You see, I'm wearing this shirt, right? That Matt probably got.
I didn't get it at first, but the GN'R on tour, the GN'R tour truck code, they got me with that in the show. I scanned it on my phone and they gave me 20% off, so I ordered it. So it's on its way right now.
Oh, nice. Cool. So what does it say? Is it GN'R?
Yeah, PDX. It says GN'R PDX here, but then the back, I don't know how to do this. Let me try this.
That picture is beautiful.
Oh, that looks cool. Yeah, a skull holding, a skeleton holding a bunch of roses. I mean, that would look like a badass tattoo.
Yeah. And I did get the lithograph. I got the one in Seattle at the stadium. That's the Supersonics kind of lithograph. And then I got one.
That was my first show.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
My first GN'R show. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I got that. That was my first one on this, not in this lifetime deal.
Yeah.
Was I think that was the first show. And then got the lithograph in at the Gorge Amphitheater. Did you go to that one, Matt?
Yeah, I went to that one too. Yeah, that's my favorite one of all the 4 shows I saw.
Unreal.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there with Tennessee, because I got to see Locomotive in Tennessee, and I lost it. I mean, I'm sorry. The only person that saw it is my ex-girlfriend. So I have no one to vouch for me, but I don't think I ever lost it at a show when I heard fucking Frank come in with that drum fill. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but the Gorge was great too, because they played My Michelle, and that's my favorite song. So, every show there was something good, something cool about that. That's what I like about Guns N' Roses too. Every show they play something. At least I've seen them, and they play something different than last time I seen them. And I feel like they get the most undeserved, like, oh, they never change up the set list hate out of any band for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. And speaking of, because you mentioned the Gorge, and you listen to my show actually, as I have my GN'R Loves DMB pillow next to me, because my fiance has seen Dave Matthews at the Gorge, and they just change up their set list like, like everything. It's like completely different every night. And I think that's just, GN'R can't do that. I think
Yeah.
it's the different styling and everything like that. But I'm with you, especially what they're doing now. I don't think that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about the set list. But the reason why I ask about the lithographs is because, Matt, you're in Portland. Like, how far of a trek was it for you to the arena? And Mike, you said you were from, I don't know, like Portland, California.
Yeah, born and raised in LA, but I'm more than half my life now here. All my kids have been raised here, so I live West Portland. So I'm 9 minutes from the MODA, from the arena.
Okay.
I'd say 11 to 13 now. It was 9 minutes a few years ago, but probably 13 minutes.
Still pretty close. So,
and like I don't live in West Portland, but I work in West Portland. So I was right over there too. So it was easiest thing in the world to get to the arena, essentially.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Because when people try to get there, they try to get there early, not just for Mammoth, which I'm glad that they're back in the road. I think they missed like one date, maybe
2 dates.
It was 2 dates. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're gonna get the Velveteers on the podcast. You opened it.
Oh, cool.
So that's gonna be fun. So they missed 2 dates, but I'm thankfully that they're back. But to get the merch and to get the lithos, which I think now you can only get one per. I think they. So do you guys go there early to get merch, or since especially you, Michael, that you've been to so many shows, you're not even worried about merch at this point?
No, I wish that was the case. My wife would tell you I have an addiction and a problem, and I've always been obsessive compulsive. And I thought I had a great buy on tickets, but it was the first show back, and it was like the first show in 2 years, and I just went nuts, man. I bought too much. It was like 4 times what the tickets got or something like that. I mean, it just ended up, and my wife doesn't even know about a couple more things coming from that GN'R truck thing. But I did go off the rails, but it was worth it.
Okay.
To me, anyhow. Yeah.
I mean, even I went off the rails for myself because I'm not a big merch at show guy, but I don't know if I got it backwards. Maybe I'll flip it forward, but yeah, I got this bad boy there.
And
then like I said, the tour truck thing popped up, and then I got the same shirt you're wearing right now, Mike. So I even went because like you said, it's the first show back, so I kind of I went and got dinner and and a drink, and I went all out for it too.
That makes sense, because you're right. It's not just Guns N' Roses on tour again. It was for me, just like it was for you both. It's your first show back. Like it's just you're out, like there are birds. You're looking at there are clouds. Like there are other people around you.
I don't know, Brando. I was gonna say I don't know if they had it at your show, but at the MODA Center, all over the walls, they had giant. Every TV had like a giant Guns N' Roses logo that said "Welcome effing back" on it.
They did.
My wife loved that.
I know.
So it was. And that was a part that was part of the emotional, like, I don't know what emotional, spiritual experience. It was just like, I was overwhelmed. And my wife was like, "Why are you crying?" Right. She goes, "Oh my God, you're crying." Right as it started. And I said, "It's just everything. It's just like your pinned tweet, bro, Brando. It's like, the world's on fire. But these guys just, and I got to credit them. I'm surprised they trucked through on this. I'm seeing cancellations left and right, and we needed it so bad. The city needed it. Could you feel that there, Matt?
Oh no, that was the only concert I've ever seen with a crazier crowd than that Guns N' Roses show was Iron Maiden last year, and that show was the same deal where it was Iron Maiden's first show in Portland in 32 years.
Yeah.
And so that's, I'd say that's the only thing I've ever seen that could compare with that type of crowd. It was the energy was there even before hour before freaking Wolfgang went on.
100%.
People were hooting and hollering like the arena was only half full at that point. That's the energy was so positive and good in that building, you know. And I got to see like all my friends came out, which has never happened at a Guns N' Roses show, which I never even thought would happen. And like I've seen like people I hadn't seen in years. It was a great vibe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt. I saw that same thing. And to speak to the one thing I wanted to comment on, you know, and it sort of fits into review of the show, is the merch thing. Really weird thing. I started seeing these stories popping up. You know, I type in Guns N' Roses Portland to see how excited people were. And I started seeing posts that were talking about a crackdown on bootleggers, right?
Okay.
And I was there we got there about 5:45, maybe 5:30. And there were secret, like undercover guys running around with mics, and they were talking to each other. And I was listening to them saying, "Hey, did you find any? Did you get any guys? I found a guy out here, but he took off, and you know, I'm not catching anybody." But they were like, I've never seen a crackdown. They had like a whole sting operation for
interesting.
That is,
because the bootleggers were out at the, I don't know, because I was waiting to meet up with a friend who was in a different section than me. So I was out by the main sign by the motor, and at the end, the bootleggers there was like multiple guys in the same corner trying to sell their shirts. So that's maybe why they were so out in force at the end of the show, because they had stopped enforcing it.
Yeah, they were selling their stuff inside. They were up in our section. So somehow they smuggled in the stuff. Yeah. They were selling.
They're always outside, like when the show is over, you know, $10 for a shirt. And then, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought one bootleg GN'R shirt at Seattle because I saw my favorite band for the first time, and I was freaked. You know, I'm all jazzed up, and this guy's like, and I had already bought one T-shirt already, and this guy's like, $10 for a Guns N' Roses T-shirt, and it was a bootleg. It looked like he had gone down to the LA shows. Do you remember the first big arena shows they did after the one in LA? Yeah, they were from that show. It said LA on the back of them, and I was like, why not? I'll take that. And then I was in line to see Black Sabbath on their farewell tour, and this older couple came up to me and asked if I was at the show. And I was like, no, I just got this in Seattle. And they were like, oh, we were just wondering because we're going to see the Stones down there, so we want to know how the arena was. Funny to bring it back to the Stones.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. The crackdown like that.
Yeah. It's this big thing. If you go look for the articles, it's Guns N' Roses has a team, and they're out to sue bootleggers and prosecute, and they're on a mission here. And which is, you know, I want money to go to the band, support the band, and all that. But sometimes those bootleg shirts end up being worth a lot of money years later, right?
Right.
The actual bootleg shirts. And the bootleg shirt, I didn't buy one, promise, but they coming through the section, and the guy's showing them, and it's Guns N' Roses, we're effing back. Guns N' Roses, we're effing back, with like I don't know if it was a version of a needle skull or something, but it said we're effing back, you know. So it was a different, you know, they just, you know, they had some unique design. But the guy was in the stand. I'd never seen that before, to where he's in the stand selling them before Mammoth came on.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that at any concert, much less Guns N' Roses. Yeah.
And neither of you had problems with the GN'R truck either, because I'll follow some GN'R merchandise fan sites on Facebook, and somebody ordered this shirt of the RoboCop lithograph on the shirt, but it was completely tilted, like completely.
Ooh.
Like it
Oh wow.
So I don't know if there are other people having issues with the GN'R truck. So you guys have not, I assume.
Well, the thing with me and the GN'R truck is it's I buy a lot of like, as far as Guns N' Roses stuff, I buy a lot of the stuff I spend my money on is like rare stuff. Like I think last time I was on the podcast, I was talking about how I bought the Westwood 1 CDs for Paris '92. So the only purchase I've ever made from the GN'R store before this was to buy the Locked and Loaded box set. And so that worked. That was fine. So I didn't have any problem with that. And I haven't gotten my shirt I bought the other nights yet. So I haven't had any problems, but I don't have that much experience.
All right.
Yeah. So you're saying the truck, you're talking about the online thing, Brando? The online.
Yeah. They have the GN'R truck. And I'm just watching because I follow merch websites, and I guess there was a couple people, but I know misprints happen. It's not to say that the whole operation isn't working, but I'm just curious to see if you guys had that issue as well, since I got you here.
I haven't yet. I've got a couple things. I said, you know what? I don't need the classic cross, right?
Mhm.
I got the reimagined. What I bought at the show was the long sleeve black one with the logo on the back with the blood dripping, the appetite artwork, right? And then I bought the white shirt because you rarely see a white tour shirt. Then I got I got this one, and then I got something else.
What does your wife know about? Tell me, what does your wife not know about yet?
What she doesn't know about is what's coming, and that's the hoodie that I got for 20% off the 100. And I got to tell you, this is the highest merch prices I've ever seen. They're up to 50. I know Kiss started doing that, and right. So we're now, it's not 40, it's not 35, 40, 45. We're 50 for every shirt. Even the Mammoth stuff was 50.
Okay.
And then it's 75 long sleeve shirts and 100 for the hoodie. So I got the hoodie with that deal that Matt's talking about, the 20% off. So I added that, and I kept going back to the stand. I grabbed a Mammoth shirt, and then I got that, like I said, the skull reimagined, the white shirt. And then I said, you know what? I don't need the classic cross. I've got that, in so many versions.
Exactly.
But I had to get it. I had to get it. It looks so beautiful on somebody.
That's why I had to get the different ones, where I got that teal kids shirt that barely fits me, but I wanted it, and then the long sleeve orange shirt. I mean,
yeah, it looked cool. I did get that. I wanted it, but I'm already.
It's good to know we all got a good haul, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm already in trouble.
Do you guys bring back your haul since you're both so close? Like Mike, did you bring back since you're 13 or 14 minutes away, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Do you take your t-shirts back to your house, or you're carrying around a bag, like a duffel bag?
Yeah. I had a bag. I bought a duffel bag. I bought a duffel bag from the GN'R connected people. Like, they have a separate merch stand that's not run by the venue. It's the GN'R people that are selling the flags and stuff and lanyards. So I bought a bag from them to put these shirts in. So I put all the shirts in that thing, and I brought that home with the lithograph. And if I had thought about it, Brando, I would have got you a lithograph, bro. I swear.
Okay. I have no more room on my wall. We got to reorganize it.
Yeah, that was it. And then I ordered the 2 things on the darn merch truck thing that Matt discovered, and I wish I didn't say, but I got it all, and I'm happy. I'm gonna chill.
All right.
I try not to regret my GN'R on tour. Like the GN'R tour truck purchase. I'm trying to just live with it,
All right. So did you guys get there in time? And it was cool to see Richard Ford has put this out on social media. He's like, make sure you get there early for Mammoth, for Wolfgang Van Halen.
Oh yeah.
I think he deserves it. I understand that's part of being an opening act. Like, people are just settling in and stuff, but man, he's a headliner, like, almost already. Like, he's gonna be. He's not.
I know, the music's great. And I grew up with, like, because I'm only 30, so I grew up with a lot of the 2000s rock bands, like, Alter Bridge and things like that. And, like, you can tell in his music that a lot of it's influenced, because I know he's a big fan of Alter Bridge, and I know that because even before he joined Tremonti, he came up and played with Alter Bridge on stage a couple times. So I know he's a big fan of that band, and I can hear that influence in it, and I love that. And I love that you can hear the Van Halen influence in it. It's like a combination of the stuff I grew up with the music, the classic rock that I found later in life. You know what I mean? So I love that about it. Yeah.
Well put. I like that.
Yeah.
Mike, what did you think of Wolfgang?
I thought it was fantastic. His vocals are surprised the heck out of me, really. The vocals, and you don't know how it transfers live, but and my wife was saying the same thing. She goes, boy, he's got a great voice. And, he's playing everything. He's got the keyboard, he's playing guitar. He played every instrument, I guess, on that album. But I agree with Matt. I don't think, a lot of, the stuff, and I know he responds back to any of that criticism about, name recognition, but it reminded me, to have him open was similar to the way that the Stones have had emerging acts open. I mean, this is you're right. Mammoth is going to carry the banner. Is it Mammoth, Greta Van Fleet, or who? But it's, Wolfgang, Mammoth, WVH is for real. And I thought that was it was a short set, but it was perfect. And it was just a great opener. It reminds me of Guns N' Roses opening for Aerosmith, which I saw, right? And Guns N' Roses opening for the Cult, which I saw, and opening for the Stones, which I saw. Yeah.
Quick question.
I don't think
when you saw, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this popped in my head. When you saw the Cult and Guns N' Roses, was Matt on drums, or was that?
It was, no, it wasn't. It wasn't Matt. It was 87 still. I think it was like 86 or 7. It was 87. So, and it was at the Long Beach Sports Arena. So it was Adler.
No, I meant, was Matt on drums for the Cult?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So in confession, I was there for Guns N' Roses, right? Because that was like, and it's a scattered appetite run, because it was like, I saw him at the Celebrity Theater in Anaheim. And it was all happening so fast, but they were like, they'd headline one show local, and then you'd find out, and then they were opening for someone else. They'd be so they were opening for the Cult, but I felt like the energy was behind Guns N' Roses. I mean, definitely for that show. Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses at the Pacific Amphitheater was kind of split. It was like a kind of a split crowd, because Aerosmith was big with that Permanent Vacation was a big deal. Going into Pump, there was a big reemergence of Aerosmith, but there was so much energy about Guns N' Roses opening for these bands. And I saw Guns N' Roses at the Tacoma Dome in 91 with Skid Row, right? And Skid Row was a hot item. I think it was like 91. It was before the big Metallica Metallica, and they delayed those dates. And I saw Metallica, Guns N' Roses at the Kingdome with Motorhead was the opening act. Faith No More had dropped out of it. And they had the Metal Church, I think, guitarist for when James burned his hand, right? They had rescheduled all those dates. But yeah, anyhow, I'm just riffing on memories.
Well, then it's going to be interesting to get, your perspective of somebody who's seen so many classic GNR shows in the lineup, and Matt, who, is so dedicated, but you're newer. Well, your first show was what? How many years ago? It was just
my first GNR.
Your first show was when?
2016. Seattle. Yeah, with Alice in Chains and Duff's Daughter's band. Yeah.
So we're talking 2016 versus 1987. So I want to know what are you both looking forward to at this GNR show? Are you looking forward to hearing Absurd, or what are you excited for here? Are you excited for maybe the same things? Like, I guess, how are you waiting for GNR? And what I'm assuming they went on time, because they're no longer late, despite all the jokes that are still made for some reason.
They're too early. They're too early.
Right.
I will say, one thing was that when I went and saw them in Tennessee, they were 40 minutes late that show, and you could feel the energy in the crowd, and
Wow.
it was because people were like,
Uh-oh.
a lot of these guys, like, not everyone's like the three of us. A lot of these people are going to see Guns N' Roses for the first time since the 80s, or they're just casual fans. They've never seen them, but everyone knows the stories of the band going on late. So once it got to the 30-minute mark, you could feel the crowd really get anxious. But then they came out in 40 minutes. It must have been technical difficulties or something, but
Yeah.
they still played a full show too. So no one was mad afterwards, but it was just so funny to feel that energy, because I had never felt that at the first two GNR shows,
And now when they come on early, now it's confusion. I feel.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say I was even, I don't know if it was on your comment feed or on Guns N' Roses comment feed about the show, but I was actually very excited to hear Absurd, because like I said, I'm a younger guy, and I don't remember what it was called, the Whenever It's Done bootleg, the one where they took half the leaked songs and half the live songs from Rock in Rio and Osaka 2002 and stuff. So I've been listening to Silk, and that album came out, that bootleg came out when I was like 14. So I've been listening to Silkworm since I was 14 years old. So for me, it's been part of the GNR catalog for a long time, and it was just another old GNR song that I've loved since I was a kid that I never got to see live. And I don't think, it's funny because I don't think I'm one of the few people that has that perspective on Absurd.
Especially since you've been listening to it, like kind of on your own rotation. I think I listened to it twice over the years when it was Silkworms.
Yeah, and
But Mike, as a classic, I'm just curious though, as a classic though, this is not a very Rolling Stones influenced Guns N' Roses song. It's completely different.
No, but I love it. And let me just say this. In deference to Matt, and even to and definitely to you, but to someone like Matt, and I say this, and this is just, I don't, like, in genuine humility, I have rediscovered Guns N' Roses in a sense. There's a freshness about them that I see through the lens of a generation that comes before me, like, or came after me, that was excited about Guns N' Roses with Chinese Democracy, and then understands and knows all those sessions. And you guys are like, there seems to be this generation of Guns N' Roses fans that are encyclopedias about, like you guys know the band better in so many in ways, and all the stuff, that in Reckless Life, like you guys know everything that's in the Reckless Life, like that's just base information to you. To me, living it from the 80s, and then when Axl went off after Spaghetti and everything died down, it was kind of set them aside, and I didn't have the same excitement with initially with Chinese Democracy, but when they came back with three of the classic lineup, when this 2016 thing came, I found energy, this something from somebody like Matt, from somebody like, do you get what I'm saying? It's like, I started seeing him through a different lens, and I started learning more about the band, like about Buckethead and Ford, this guy and that guy, a bunch of, all these players that, I didn't have, the familiarity with, and a lot of it
should be. I'm learning through, it's like how I learn about bands that came before me it's a different lens, and that's what music should be. It's bringing people together, regardless of, when you were born. That shouldn't be dictated, but no, I completely understand that. So you like Absurd. I feel a little weird singing along to it, I don't want to sing along to it.
Oh yeah, it's weird. I was definitely singing along to Everywhere at the concert. Maybe not on the bus, on when I'm riding the bus to the. to the
I don't
crowd,
want
you
to.
know?
I don't want to sing the song. I mean, my
Oh,
fiance
man.
doesn't care. She
It-
kind of laughs. She's like, "Oh wow, these are the lyrics," but I don't
yeah.
want to say that
No, I know
around
what you mean, because I remember
women.
a
It's
few weeks ago I met a really hardcore Guns N' Roses fan. Like he was so hardcore. He was like the sound on Matt Sorum's drum sound on Libertad is how I base my drum sound. That's how hardcore the guy was. And so I asked him about Absurd, and he was like, didn't like it. He's like, isn't that? Did they just re-record a song that was on Chinese Democracy? And I was like, no, but I see why you might think that.
I
So
think
it's very interesting to hear all the different takes everybody has on it, you know. And that's really the only person I met in person besides hardcore GN'R fans that were, because I met some people at the show that were hardcore and love Absurd, just like me and Mike do. But I had never met anybody that had an opposite take on it, you know.
I think I put that a meme up of, you can see that classic meme template of the the very male chauvinistic Astros fan putting his hand around like his girlfriend or whatever, talking to her like intently about something. I'm like, well, Absurd was technically Silkworm was back in 2000, and it's just so funny. Like when you try to explain this, is it a new Guns N' Roses song? Is it just Chinese Democracy? You can't answer that simply, and then you just sound like a GNR nerd. But that's what
I don't know. I think there is something really fucking incredible though about hearing a track that's got Duff on bass. We don't know if Rich, because all the Guns N' Roses albums have different guys on each song. But so we don't know if Rich is on it, but it's so cool to hear a track with Slash, Duff, and Brain. You know what I mean? I never thought I would hear that. Like hearing Brain back those two up. It's so cool, because he's such an incredible drummer, and he's one of my favorite drummers of all time. So
we'll see if he comes back. I texted him twice. I know he's a super busy guy. He's not big on social media at all. He's just kind of like one of those. You'd think him and Axel, like they kind of have that in and out kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I bit the hand that fed me as far as like just admitting that after all this time, yeah, he told me that Melissa wants to come on the podcast and they want to do the podcast together. He's like, we're working on a project together. We can't promote that on your show because of, I already did an episode about this, the Don't Ban Me episode. But what's interesting is that you saw a picture, it might have been at the LA show. They went backstage. It was Brain was back there with Melissa, with, I forget her last name, Nandy, the young 10-year-old drummer that's gone viral. Like with Dave Grohl. She's just gone viral. All these rock stars wanted to play with her. So she liked my tweet, Nandy did. So I'm gonna reach out to her. Maybe I'll get her on the podcast.
You're saying Brain was there?
Yeah, there's a picture of Brain, Melissa, and little 10-year-old
cool.
Nandy, the drummer. Outside, I guess their dressing room, and I think it was L.A. It might have been.
Yeah, I love it if they brought him up on stage more. Like I said, like when I got into Guns N' Roses, he was the drummer. You know what I mean? Because I got into him like 2003, somewhere in there. So Brain was the guy when I joined. So.
I like him. I'm still getting some of the best interviews that I've done. And before I forget, Michael, you have a Stones tattoo, right? On your arm?
Yeah, I've got too many of them. That's one Stones. Then I've got Keith and Mick right here.
Little
portraits.
Okay.
Those are some old ones, and then I've got my Stones tongue on here,
nice.
And I've got some other stuff. But yeah, that was.
My only cool Stones thing is my Bridges to Babylon tour T-shirt. That's the only one.
Great tour.
Yeah. I think my friend gave it to me when we were teenagers because it was too big for him, and I was a little bigger than him. But I just saw it when I was grabbing my Guns N' Roses shirt to come out here. Funny enough.
And my brother Tristan, who I mentioned earlier, he got to see the Stones in Israel when he was on Birthright, which is pretty.
Oh wow!
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, so he has like a Rolling Stones T-shirt and all Hebrew. So that's
wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So I want to get to Absurd is the big thing now because that's the new thing. But what are you both looking forward to in the set list? Are you looking forward to your favorite songs? Are you expecting to be surprised by something? Oh, and by the way, I'm leaving my email up just in case. Okay, so this is kind of almost breaking news. Not really. I'm gonna interview the guy from Mr. Big. That's right. Yeah.
Which one?
Eric.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's coming up. I'm gonna schedule that. So
Wow.
I'm waiting. So yeah, so Eric from Mr. Big, and I'm still waiting to hear back from Jerry Cantrell. Still waiting to.
Wow.
I want to confirm that, but it's just like cans being kicked down. But
Yeah,
it
I
should be
mean,
happening.
you're
Knock
talking to
on.
two guys that saw Alice in Chains open for Guns N' Roses, so that's
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah.
and his new album, Jerry's features Duff. At least one
Oh
song.
yeah.
So there'll be a lot to
Well,
talk to him about.
well,
So
Duff
anyway,
was like a touring member of Alice in Chains, I think, for a brief period when they first reunited the band without Lane. He played a couple of shows on rhythm guitar with them.
I think he did that. He did that with Jane's Addiction as well.
Yeah. Because he wrote. I remember that period.
Jeez, Duff. He's
Yeah.
like he's everything. He's in everything. He's like the
Yeah.
one man band like Menudo. He's just like
Yeah.
constantly something else.
He blows my mind. Like if I, just looking at, just watching that show, and I remember thinking it and feeling it, but to see a guy in the condition that he's in, the shape he's in, and the energy that he brings to that show. I mean, he's 10 times the showman that he was in the 80s and the 90s, right? He's just 10 times. It's so cool to see.
So what did you
so
think,
cool to see.
what did you think of? And I was you thought for a second, at least I did, before they I guess it was maybe the second show after Absurd debuted. They started playing the Stooges song, and I was like, "Wait a minute, is this a new song?" Oh no! I quickly recognized it. So, but to me, I think it's a highlight now because Duff and Slash seems really into it. So I'm like, how do you guys feel about this? What is it? Walk a Dog? What's the name of it again?
I Want to Be Your Dog.
Want to be
your dog? Yeah.
I was a big fan of it because I'm a huge Stooges fan because I discovered the Stooges from Spaghetti Incident. Because that's how I got into punk rock, was the Spaghetti Incident. So
Wow,
yeah, I'm a big Stooges fan. And just for because I know you guys have been a part of the community for a long time. People like to rag on Guns for playing too many covers. But for example, my buddy Corey, who works for hey Corey, if you're watching this, he works for School of Rock, and he was able to get 2 free tickets to the concert. And he's not a big Guns N' Roses fan, but he's a huge Stooges fan, and he's a huge Who fan. So when they played "I Want to Be Your Dog" and they played "The Seeker," he was super stoked because he was expecting to see a band he was a casual fan of. He wasn't expecting to hear some of his favorite songs. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I think
that's why my fiance, she the band that we do bond over are the Beatles. And so she wants to hear "Live and Let Die." She loves that when GN'R plays that. Perhaps I don't know about you guys. I've heard it enough. I don't dislike the song certainly, but it's if they replaced it with Pretty Tied Up, I would love that. She wouldn't.
I wouldn't argue with that.
You know what I mean? So it's you got to play it to the masses sometimes and what they're familiar with, especially if it's a hit. The cover's a hit.
Yeah. I don't know. And I think if you see from my tweets, like some of the people ask, what's your top 5, 10 band? I like so much. There's so much I like, and I have eclectic taste, I think, because I like a lot of the blues. I wrote that in response to you. I said, and I feel this with all the conviction in my heart that, the Stones brought Chicago electric blues back to America, right, and made it happen, or like they reinterpreted it, and that's what made the Stones. And I think that there's an element of Guns N' Roses that reinterpreted then, and then they do punk. Like the Stones' efforts on punk, their interpretation of punk is found in '78 on Some Girls. And there's a similarity between Mick and Axl, and they're constantly reaching to reinterpret the trend and then take it in another direction, take it to another place. And I think that they both do that with the punk sound. I mean, Matt alluded to, I kind of liked all the punk crossover with metal and seeing Metallica back in '81 at the same place. I saw Guns N' Roses at Radio City in Anaheim. That's where I'm born and raised. Oh, okay. And I saw them, and that was one of the early Duff shows. I didn't know that till later, but I guess it was one of the first or second Duff performances. But Metallica played there, and it was like punk. It felt like some speeded up punk to me, but I think that the way that Guns N' Roses experiments, and I hear that more and more on, when I listen to, I'm probably getting into Chinese democracy where you were years ago, Matt, or Brando, right? Like, and I'm hearing it with fresh ears. It's like a fresh album still to me. And I'm hearing the experimentation. And I think that Mick always tried to do that. He always tried to push the envelope, even with, some albums that weren't so well regarded, like Undercover of the Night or Voodoo Lounge. But I think he was always trying to take whatever was the hottest thing, disco, even in '78 with some girls, right? And I think that that's Axl. Axl will do that, right? He takes stuff, and there's stuff on Chinese democracy with a beat that, and I love that he takes those chances, and I don't, everybody's, there's a lot of people from my generation, Guns N' Roses fans, that are they're just stuck in that, hey, it's the classic lineup, that's it. And after those first few albums, that's it. And I can't be, look at the draw, look at how many people are coming in, man. They're people older than me, my age, younger than me, people taking their kids, their grandkids.
All types, all ages. That's not at every show. That really isn't.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to see. So for both of you who are going into the show like me, positive, you want to hear everything, the old stuff, the new air quote stuff, the Chinese democracy stuff. So what were your personal highlights? What were the songs that you both enjoyed and maybe meant you'll remember this Portland show for?
For me, I mean, I really was happy to hear You're Crazy. And it was another thing we were talking about with I Want to Be Your Dog, where they started playing the riff and you thought it was a new song. They changed up You're Crazy. It starts with Frank on drums now. If at least at the Portland show it did. So I didn't even know what song it was, and then it came out of nowhere, which was great. And then Madagascar was massive for me, just because I remember when I saw them at the Gorge, I saw on the message boards on my GN'R that they had played that they had been rehearsing Madagascar. And for context, for the Gorge show, we had me and my nephew. I went with my nephew, and me and my nephew always told ourselves that if we saw GN'R together, we would get some Night Train. And so we drove all over Portland trying to find Night Train because they don't sell it anywhere, and we found it. And so we're pretty, we're drinking Night Train all night and beers and stuff. So I'm a little under the influence. And then I'm shouting for My Michelle the whole night. That's my favorite song. And then they play it. And then I'm like, well, what do I do now? And I start screaming for Madagascar the whole rest of the show because I heard they were rehearsing it. So to finally get to hear that, and it was the first song of the encore, like when those, in that song, when those keys hit or that synth intro hits, I was flabbergasted because I love that song. It's another one of those songs I grew up with. So that were like new Guns N' Roses songs to me when I was a teenager. So I was definitely most excited for You're Crazy and Madagascar out of anything in the set. Yeah.
Think back to the 2002, the MTV VMAs, when Axl comes back in his Jerry Rice Raiders jersey and is all new band except for Dizzy. I mean, myself included, I didn't recognize anybody. I didn't know what a Buckethead was at the time, Robin Fink. And they played this new song that I had never at the time. I didn't hear the leaks. This is like when I was first getting into the community. Madagascar.
Back then, even nothing had really leaked. It was just, oh my God, and some live recordings.
Yeah, I think it was just a live recording of Madagascar that existed at the time. And then flash forward to today, it's Slash and Duff are playing on Madagascar.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, what what world is this? What Twilight Zone is this? But here we are.
And like another cool thing with the set on this tour, on the comeback tour, is that they're doing Chinese Democracy and Slither back to back now. At least at the Portland show they did, which I think is so cool because it's like to hear those two songs in a row. It's just, and that it's like, whoever thought you'd hear Slash play Chinese Democracy or Axl play Slither, you know? So
I
it's
want
cool
to
to hear them back to back. It's just like, whoa, you know?
keep doing it. I don't care if it's a cover. Let's hear some Slash's Snake Pit. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's see
No,
what-
my best friend who's been to hundreds and hundreds of shows with me, he was like, when we saw Guns, did they play a Slash's Snake Pit song? And I was like, no, but we saw Slash play 2 Slash's Snake Pit songs when they opened for Ozzy. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
What should I train? Mike, what were your highlights, Mike?
Well, you know that Night Train's my favorite, right? But Double Talk and Jive, they just go off, man. I mean, it's just it's an extravaganza. It's a sensory overload, man. And to hear that, I just loved it. I'd also have to say, and I was surprised, but I told you this in a reply. I thought it was a kick to hear, Axl introduce now, and he's done this type of thing before, but he says, now we're going to make it, slow it down and give you some nice, beautiful love songs or something like that. And then they go into You Could Be Mine, right? And so that whole set, what was it? You Could Be Mine, I Want to Be Your, then they go into I Want to Be Your Dog, and Absurd, right? And, it was just like this set that were just everything opposite of love songs. And then after Civil War and the solo, Sweet Child of Mine, they actually do slow it down and go into that kind of mini acoustic set with Wichita Lineman. So I want to say Wichita Lineman and Knocking on Heaven's Door. I thought they were incredible versions, but his vocals on Wichita Lineman and I'd also say Patience were just perfect. I mean, he was just perfect.
No, and I was actually surprised when Wichita, not when Wichita started, but when Axl came in with the first line. I think a lot of people realized that what was going on at that point. And they actually got a pretty good pop from the crowd. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it actually, and I've seen them play Wichita 3 times, but I never heard like a pop like that for it, which was cool.
Yeah.
I love that version. It made me go back. You'll laugh at this, Mike. I mean, and Matt, maybe you went back just like I did. I mean, I knew of Glenn Campbell, but I never really spent time listening to his music. So hearing GN'R cover that made me go back. And the original, of course, is just fantastic. But I hadn't heard the original until I heard GN'R do.
Oh yeah.
Wichita.
I heard the original.
I hope it's on a new album.
Yeah.
I went off on a rabbit trail earlier, and I know we're talking about what our highlights were of this show, but I want to say unequivocally, just with all the conviction in the world, I think that they make cover tunes their own, unlike any other band in history, right? Metallica comes close. I think Metallica does a great job. I love Metallica, and I love what they do, with on Garage Inc. And they do a great job with covers. But my wife, and I'll let her think this. I don't tell her the real story. She hears, and I know she saw McCartney with me doing Live and Let Die, but she thinks that Knocking on Heaven's Door is Guns N' Roses. She doesn't know it's Bob Dylan, right? She doesn't know, Live and Let Die is Guns N' Roses to her, right? So I just, I don't know that there's a better band that does, that takes a cover and reimagines it completely.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
I am very much hoping there's at least, because there's been rumors for years that the new album was supposed to have a cover on it. I'm really hoping there is, because that'd be something nice for them to bring back.
Yeah.
I was going to say, on the topic of highlights of the show, this was, out of all 4 shows I went to, the best mood and the most energetic and the most talkative I had ever seen Axl. Like, you were there, Mike. He was, between almost every song, he was talking to the crowd. He was bringing up these great stories of talking to Pete Townsend before Rock in Rio, about covering The Seeker, which was great. He he was bringing up, he was like, sorry, I'm so energized tonight, guys. I got all hopped up on Voodoo Donuts before the show.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And I'd
That's
never
right.
heard him like, I'd never seen, and it's not that any of the other shows I saw he was in a bad mood. I'd never seen him in such a good mood. It just looked like he was having so much fun and so joyous up there, which was great to see.
Yeah.
Wonderful to see.
And that donut line reminds me of something before I forget it. I follow Beta on Instagram, and she's been showing. I like following a lot of these people. I'm show more backstage stuff. That's why Megan Hodges / his girlfriend is great. Susan McKagan is great. But Beta, she was, and just to show you, like, there's no hard feelings or anything. I just want them to get to know me to not block me from interviews. But she was showing like their food spread, and there was like, look at all the donuts we're eating, but don't worry, these are not for Axel, because I know I'm going to get comments like that. I just thought that was funny. You know, she's like, these are my donuts. These are not Axel's donuts.
Yeah. Like, I like Axel's not even like he has to know people like give him a hard time for that crap, but like I like how he doesn't stop him from making jokes and having fun with it. You know what I mean?
He should have fun. And honestly,
yeah, exactly.
Who wouldn't feel slightly pudgy next to Duff?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's so
I
silly.
feel
It's
like a little girl, and I feel fat next to him. You know.
I feel like
Yeah.
I think he's looking great this tour. I feel like he looks like he's running around on stage like he's in his 20s or 30s again. And you know he looks like he's in a bad, maybe I don't know what happened to him during the pandemic, but it seems like he's been his energy. He's got great energy, and he's so positive and happy on this tour. It's like
I love it.
So good to see, you know. And
yeah, I agree. He looks great. I think he sounds great. I think that just the fans that they want to find something negative. Those are the
I
fans
feel like it's like you hear them always talk about all the bad stuff Axel does, but you never hear him talk about when he's having a great night, like in Portland. You know what I mean? Like you never hear those stories.
Okay.
And from my point of view, from my perspective, you know, I hear this stuff, and I won't use the term that's used about, you know, his high register, the falsetto.
Oh yeah.
Right. But I'm sorry, man. It's his show. Could he step it down? You know, could he step it down? I mean, they open with "It's So Easy," and I can imagine him stepping it down. I was just listening to the Live Era yesterday, and I forget what song it was, and I said, "Geez, he could eat." Oh, "You Could Be Mine." And I said, "Yeah, he could step it down and be here." But he's, you know, might go into a higher register. But you know what? I just put that down to his creativity. I don't think I think that it is incredible to me that he has the vocal power behind that falsetto, right? He does. And now there might be nights where it's not quite that way, but for him to go from that high register to that mid range, which he's just incredibly powerful in that mid range and that lower range, and he moves between the three, and then the scream comes, and you think, is he all out of gas? He's been in this high register for this extended period of time. How is he going to hit that, you know, get that scream out? But he does, right? He gets it done. And, you know, that's a challenging, it's a challenging catalog, man. And it's an endless, you know, and I hear people say, I hear this thing all the time about, it's amazing. You know, the ones will say overrated for what they put out. Well, what they put out nearly 4 albums on one midnight, right? You know, they put out, you have 70 plus songs. I mean, there were, you know, it's the timing you don't like, man. It's not the output, it's the timing. You know, they just, you know, they put out a ton of music at once. You know, what am I looking forward to? I'll take anything. And I like Absurd. And Chinese Democracy for me is like, I'm hearing it with fresh ears. This old man here is becoming more and more a fan of that record through these live renditions and hearing Slash take these guitar parts. And What a beautiful record. Chinese Democracy is going up, you know, it keeps ranking higher in my mind and in my, you know, and I want to hear it more and more.
Yeah.
And I don't get tired of the you know, the catalog. I want more, but for people to say they keep selling out, they keep the crowds keep coming, and there's plenty of songs. And look, right, Matt said what was the favorite song? My Michelle. Well, we didn't get that. Did we get that?
No, we didn't get that one.
We didn't get that
because you were at the Gorge with me. They played it at the Gorge.
Yeah.
And
You can leave a Guns N' Roses concert, and there are legacy acts that there's 8 or 9 songs. If they're lucky, there's 8, 9 songs, right? Like, not saying like maybe Kiss, or, you know, you've got the Stones, you got a few bands, but Guns N' Roses, yeah, you go to a show and boy, do they give you effort? Do they give effort and give you your money's worth? They're playing for 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, and you're still leaving. You leave the show and there's 10 more tunes that you would have died to hear.
Agreed.
You know.
Agreed. So where does this rank for you, Michael? Someone who's seen them for so many different places and so many different times of your life. Where does this show rank for you?
It's all relative, but the insanity in the war, like, just if I could just say that, just taking the climate of the last 2 years and this comeback, that has to be factored into it.
Sure.
And to see these guys on stage better, they're tighter now than when I in my opinion, since 2016, you know, the first stadium show. They keep getting tighter and better. It's up there. I haven't seen a show I don't like, but this made me very, very emotional, just because of the time, the times that we're in, seeing everybody cancel but Guns N' Roses, and to see them come to Portland, and Matt did this city, based on all the coverage and all the crap and all the stuff that you see here, the people here and the times and just the way that everyone's been feeling. I felt like they came here and it was like a spiritual revival.
Oh, exactly.
For the city. That's how I felt.
And it was like you said, so many people from different walks of life and different cultures, and everybody was just there for the same thing. You know what I mean? We were all on the same page, you know, and that was nice to see. And it was so incredible. And and I don't like, it's going to be like, it's so hard to pick my favorite of all the Guns N' Roses shows we saw, because there was everything is something special. Like I said, when I saw them in Tennessee, they played Locomotive. When I saw them in Seattle, was my first show, and they played Catcher in the Rye, you know? So like, it's so hard to pick, but like the energy, this was the best energy I'd ever seen at a Guns N' Roses concert for sure. And it was so positive and so wonderful. And like I said, you could see, and even like during the encore, like Slash was out on the stage for a good like 5 or 10 minutes after the show, giving out picks to people, like waving to people in the crowd that he knew. Because when I saw Slash at Spirit Mountain Casino in 2011, he was talking about how he spent a lot of time in Portland and he had a lot of friends there. And my buddies went because Slash had given somebody tickets that already had tickets, so they got free tickets because of that. So it was cool to see, you know, and like it was cool to see these guys in such like a. You could tell it wasn't like, you know, every band they have, you get shows where it's like, you know, it's the middle of the tour and they're you know, they're a little gassed, but you could tell these guys were so happy to be there and the energy was so wonderful. You know what I mean? And it was like you said, a spiritual experience is a really good way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I feel. It was cathartic in a way. I felt freer. I felt less anxious. I felt all kinds of joy, and they were, they just brought joy to this city. And I think Axel said, ready to have some fun, or let's have some fun tonight or something like that. And man, I said, geez, just to hear those words and boy, did you unleash the fun. Thank you, Axel. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Slash, Duff, Melissa, everybody, Frank. And it ranks way up there, man, Brando and Matt, for me. It does. It's the best show is the last one I saw. And I just,
sense.
Right on.
it just burned.
I got to thank you guys for kind of bringing me along this trip again, because Mike, have you, as you mentioned before, you'll sometimes go on like several shows on a tour leg. That's not something I normally do. While albeit I only went to 2, and I hope to go to more. It's just it just makes me wish I go to each stop, and you're helping me along, like, because I wish I was in Portland for that, So it's just very cool to kind of get that same vibe from each city. Like, everyone's really excited, and I know I saw you, Michael. You were wearing your Guns N' Roses face mask. I just everyone continue just to be safe, be smart, do what you can, and hopefully GN'R can keep this tour night train going, because we all want it. We all want it.
Yeah. And I think people could use a little live music right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to see Megadeth next weekend, and I'm ecstatic for that. I didn't even think I was going to go, because I thought, long story, I thought I was going to go on a vacation. I thought I was going to have to give my ticket to somebody else, but I get to go now.
Good.
I'm so unbelievably excited for that, because like Megadeth's another band I discovered around the same time as Guns N' Roses. And
right on.
And like, music's my whole life, so it's so wonderful to be back, for it to be back in at least a little bit, and getting to hear some of my favorite bands, some of my favorite songs.
Well, the worst case, you always get to talk about it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
On Appetite for Distortion. So any future GN'R dates, if you want to be like Michael or Matt or Eric P, who got me that sweet ass Fargo lithograph, just hit me up on social media. The new Twitter at the AFD Podcast, Facebook, email the AFD Show at gmail.com. Let me know. In the future, I definitely want to do reviews of legacy shows. Maybe the Giant Stadium Paradise City video shoot, or maybe like a Big Stone show. Those are things we'll do in the future, because I'm just having so much fun doing these review shows with, you, the GN'R fan. But as I mentioned earlier, as we wrap up this episode, Eric Martin of Mr. Big, I was just told that's going to happen. And
awesome.
So I just got to
confirm it. Great. That band is so top notch. Everybody in the band.
We'll see if I get Billy Sheehan on in the future. They're like, we're still working on Billy. Would you want us to talk to Eric? Sure. Yeah, sure. And still waiting. Oh, maybe that's an email about Jerry Cantrell. Is it? No, it's my work email saying that my meeting is pushed forward. That's not as fun. That's a work email. Not as fun as
I'm definitely going to be one of the first people to listen to the Jerry podcast, because those are my 2 of my top 5 favorite bands, GN'R and AIC. So I'm excited for that.
So yeah, stay tuned for whenever that's announced. Obviously, that's why you follow on social media. If you want to co-host, somebody wants to co-host an episode, if you want to get your questions submitted so I can ask them for you to Jerry or whoever comes on. So one of these next episodes is going to come review, rock stars. Well, in the words of Axl Rose, concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.